You guys, I'm so excited. I'm here with Jessica today, and she's actually going to be at Rise Live at the Rise Summit. So, this is going to be really cool, a special treat. But she runs Project More Happy, which we're going to dive into. And she's just like a beam. I just love this, like a beam of happiness. And I'm sure that, I'm assuming it wasn't always that way. And so, we're going to dive in and learn all about this. So, I literally just want to hand it over to you. And if you want to introduce yourself and also like kind of, the burning question of like, how did you get here? Because that's my burning question.
Yes. Yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to come and share my story and my work here with you and your listeners. And I am so excited for the summit in July. It's going to be a lot of fun. I know there's going to be so much goodness that everyone's going
Mhm.
to walk away with. I was looking at the speaker lineup. I am excited to go to the other session. So I'm just excited about all that. I am Jessica Lyonford. I founded Project More Happy back in 2018 because of, and for all the reasons that you
Yeah.
assumed there, my journey required me to figure out happiness for myself.
Yeah.
I had my first career was in advertising. I was a creative director. I did, national ad campaigns and commercial shoots. And it's interesting. I was just in a casting session yesterday because I
Oh
still
my
dip
gosh.
in and out depending on the client and the work.
Oh,
But I rose really quickly. I was ticking all the boxes for what we're told success is, right?
yeah.
I met a wonderful person. We bought the house that we wanted. We lived in the right neighborhood. We did
Yeah,
all the things you're supposed to do to be happy, right? And I
exactly.
was I was miserable. I was completely burnt out. I When we had our first kid, my husband had gotten laid off like 2 months before, and I had postpartum depression really bad. And it was like, I have to figure this out. I have
Yeah.
to figure out what's not working. And I am a naturally curious person. So I just went down the rabbit hole to learn all the things. I
Yeah.
went the spirituality path, I went the behavioral science path, the positive psychology. Like, I was like, anything that I
Yeah.
thought could help me find happiness, because I was still searching for it at that point, I took on. And I was really lucky that my wonderful partner gave me the space and grace to do that, right? Because I wasn't good for anyone
Yeah.
when I was in that space. And so I founded Project More Happy as a way to gift other people the knowledge that I picked up on my journey. I read a thing the other day that said there are two types of people in the world. There are way more than two types of people. I will go ahead and say there are way more than two types of people. But the general buckets that this premise was
Yeah.
about was there are people who go through hard things and
Yeah.
want everyone else to have to go through them too because they suffered
Oh,
through. And then
yeah.
there's a group of people, the other group, that went through hard things and will do everything in their power
Yeah.
to keep people from having to go through what they went through.
God, I love that.
And that's what Project More Happy is. It is, I want to make the science of happiness that changed my life. I want to make that accessible to more people, because I think when we know it and when we understand how happiness actually works, like, our entire world can change.
Totally. I love this so much because truly, like, I have, my own journey, which we won't get into, but, like, where it's like, yeah, you're trying all the things. I remember that feeling of just being like, give me every single book, give me every program, like every podcast. Oh my gosh. I would go on these really long walks and I try everything. I'm like Joel Osteen, Tara Brock, everybody, like, I don't care, like just trying everything. And the same thing, like if I had that shortcut back then, if you will, like where it's like you find somebody like yourself who's like, here, let me give you a little bit of a shortcut. You probably still have to, it's individualized. You probably still have to sift through what works for you, but here's like your 8 pillars, right? Like here's like let's get into it, because truly there's just so much out there, and it's the time, the money, the energy, everything of trying to figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
So I love that you're sharing, this.
Well, and what's interesting is there are a lot of people in this space, and there are a
Mhm.
lot of, it's why I spent so much time taking in all the content.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good advice out there
Mhm.
of, do this. This is what helped me do this.
Yeah.
But happiness is different for each and every one of us. So the
Yeah.
first thing we always have to do is say, what actually is happiness and success to me? But then
Mm,
my approach isn't, I'm not going to tell you to do a gratitude journal.
sure.
I'm not going to tell you that you have to do breath work, right? Because that works for some people, but not other people. What
Yeah.
my approach is about is, one, understanding how our brain actually works when it comes to those feel good chemicals. And then the 8 pillars of happiness are the 8 skills
Yeah.
that we actually practice to create more happiness in our lives and to train our brain to release those happy chemicals so that we keep coming back and doing those things. So gratitude is one of the skills, but there
Yeah.
are 100 different ways to practice gratitude, more than that. So if you understand foundationally, then you can design the practices under those pillars with those skill sets that
Cool.
work for you and the life you're trying to build. Because some of us, I can't sit and meditate in silence for a long time. Some people can, and that's great.
Yeah.
But I need to do my feeling work differently. Right.
Yes, right. It's like, yeah, that 20-step routine that all the influencers are showing where you're like, it's actually making me more unhappy than
Right.
it is like anything else.
My anxiety is going up as my to-do list goes up. Yes. And that is, I think that has been the false narrative around happiness, is that there is these quick fix, just like do these practices.
Yeah.
But really, it's understand the skills and then figure out practices that allow you to lean into those skills that
Mm,
work best for your lifestyle, for your schedule, for the limited time you have.
yeah.
Because otherwise, it's not going to stick and we're not going to show up and actually do the work.
Yeah, exactly. Gosh, that's like the freaking quote right there. I'm like dying to dive into to the 8 pillars because I'm just like, okay, girl, tell me everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So the 8 pillars. So I like to use, I played basketball growing up. I still love basketball. I love watching it. I like to use a basketball analogy when it comes to the 8 pillars because we like to think that either you're happy or you're not, right?
Yeah.
Like it's an
Yeah.
on or off thing. But happiness is a skill. And so if you think about it like another skill, basketball,
Mm,
then you begin to understand that there's an entire ecosystem of skill sets that you have to practice to get better at basketball. So if I want to be a better basketball player, I have to practice my free throws and I have to practice my dribbling and my 3 pointers and all those different things. And as I practice those different skill sets, I become a better basketball player. And happiness works a lot in the same way. And the skills, like if you even go further in the basketball analogy, I might be really good at layups. So I don't need to practice my layups as much. But I'm
yeah.
terrible at 3 pointers. So the happiness pillars work that same way. Some of the pillars we are innately much better at and don't have to practice as much because our brains are already wired for those dopamine hits, for those feel good chemical reactions, right? Like, okay, so the pillars, so that
Yeah.
this makes sense. Our pillars are confidence, and yes, confidence is a practice. Confidence, authenticity, compassion, curiosity, purpose, optimism, gratitude, and feeling. And people don't like the pillar of feeling, but we have to feel our feelings. We have to feel we have to do that work because feelings are just messages. They're messages to pay attention to something. And so if we don't judge our feelings, if we just get curious about our feelings, okay, why am I feeling this way? Then we can work through and process them a lot quicker and a lot more healthily, which we are not so good at. We don't like processing our feelings. But so when you understand that those are the skill sets to
Yeah.
practice, and right, like I'm really good at curiosity. I am a naturally curious person, which is
Yeah.
great because curiosity triggers a lot of dopamine in my brain, right? So dopamine is that instant gratification, feel good chemical that it's usually what we think happiness is.
Hmm.
But when you learn new things, your brain loves that and lights up. And so that's why a lot of times when we feel stuck, it's because we haven't done new or different things in a long time.
Mm,
And
yeah.
we, as a species, as humanity, we are supposed to be constantly evolving and growing. And growth can only happen at the edge of your comfort zone, which is where curiosity and dopamine live. So
So
when you understand that, and like that's like one of my natural pillars, I am not good at confidence. So I have to practice confidence a whole lot more and build that into my calendar, build it into my routines to
cool.
practice confidence. But I don't have to do that with curiosity because that's just natural. My brain's already wired for it. So when you understand that that's how the pillars work, then it becomes a lot easier to design a life around these different practices and really start creating, not finding, creating the happiness that you want.
So it's like kind of figuring out for yourself. So based on the different pillars, yeah, like you said, so you're naturally curious or you're naturally kind of pushing, to that
Yeah.
edge, right? But confidence doesn't come so naturally. So it's finding the practices that work for you to build that up or.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes. And really, so I teach a lot of classes in this, and I have it's actually my freebie if you're at the summit, my daily
Yes.
happiness journal. But it's a tool that I developed for myself when I started practicing the pillars, but I share it freely with anyone who's curious about developing these practices because
Yeah.
it is, we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our schedules are pretty full. We don't have a whole lot of wiggle room a lot of the time to squeeze in more things on our to-do list. And
Yeah.
the daily happiness journal, or this practice that I developed, it's 10 minutes a day to practice all 8 pillars. So it's like a baseline. You do 4 in the morning for like 5 minutes, your morning intentions. So you do, authenticity and purpose and optimism and curiosity in the morning.
Yeah.
And then in the evening, you do evening reflections for 5 minutes. And that's where you do feeling and compassion and gratitude and confidence. So, like, really, 10 minutes a day to do
Yeah,
baseline
and
practice
split
on the 8 pillars isn't asking a whole lot, but it starts
yeah.
wiring your brain for those practices.
So now you're starting to go through your day, you're paying more attention, you're bringing those things in. And can you explain a little bit so in this freebie how it works? Like, I don't want you to give the whole thing away, of course, but is there a way that it's a little bit like it's individualized for you, right? So like can we just talk about maybe one of them,
Yeah.
one of the
So
components?
I'll do two. I'll do a morning and an
Okay,
evening because these two
perfect.
pair really well together. And they're
Yeah,
actually two really simple happiness practices that don't take a whole lot of time.
cool.
The first is, so we do purpose in the morning. And purpose isn't, a lot of times we're scared of purpose because it feels really big and daunting.
Yeah.
Purpose is really just being intentional in showing up in ways that are going to light you up and provide meaning in your life. So we start with 3 daily intentions. And I tell people they can be spend time with your kids, right? They can be do a really good job on this presentation. They can be get outside for 5 minutes, right? They don't have to be these big things. They just have to mean something to us and be intentional around what we're trying to design in our lives and for
Yeah.
ourselves. So you have your daily intentions. And so you do 3 of those in the morning. And then in the evening, during your evening reflections, you do your confidence practice and you celebrate 3 wins from your day. And the reason I like this is, again, a win can be really big or it can be really small, right? I
Yeah.
like to tell people it's okay if one of your wins is that you got out of bed that day.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing, even in something that might not seem like a big deal, it was probably a really big deal for you if it was in your win column, but you're telling your brain that that was a good thing. You're getting the dopamine release, and your brain is now going, oh, we want to do that again. So you're priming your brain to make it easier to get out of bed the next day. That's what celebrating wins does. But why I love confidence at the end of the day is if you have nothing else, you go back to those daily intentions and you put them in your win column.
Oh,
So it's just about creating space to
yeah.
celebrate how you're showing up in the ways that you want to show up in your life.
See, that's really cool because again, like you going back to what you said, where it's like you're not adding a bunch of stuff to your routine. Like this can it's more so it's like the reflection because that's gonna bring about those, reinforce all of those feelings, reinforce the behaviors even.
Yeah.
And then also, yeah, like we don't have to reimagine and do the whole influencer crazy routine, right? Like you don't need to go out and buy a bunch of things too. That's like
No.
my side note downfall thing where I'm just like, okay, yeah, green juice and this new outfit and all these things because yeah, that's like a whole slippery slope right there where, you think that we have to have all this extra stuff. But so I love that where it's like you're just checking back in and you're just being more intentional with the time that we have.
Yeah. And I want to say that what you're talking about in terms of buying all the things, like,
Yeah.
it is such
Mm,
a natural thing that we default to. And
yeah.
it is because it plays to the instant gratification. It is one of the quickest dopamine hits we can get is to buy something we want or we think we
Yeah.
want. The trick with that is it leaves that feeling of happiness leaves just as quickly as it comes.
Yes.
And we go back to our baseline. And so I tell people it helps to understand that there are 4 different chemicals in our brains that make us feel good. And dopamine's the one we generally try to get more of in our lives. Like, I'm a big taco person. Like, my wedding was taco themed.
Oh, how cool.
Before we like announced our firstborn's name, like we called him the chorizo prince. Like, we are a taco family. I love tacos. That's a dopamine hit. Like, taco night is a dopamine hit, and that's great. But if all we're doing is priming our brain for dopamine,
Mhm.
then our life becomes that roller coaster of up and down.
Yeah.
And so when you understand you have 3 other feel good brain chemicals, you have serotonin, right? So serotonin is your mood stabilizer. It's what you get when you do your meditation, when you go outside, but it's all about stabilizing so you're not doing the big swings. You have
Mm.
endorphins, which are your body's natural painkiller. You know, your runner's high. Exercise is really good at endorphins. Some of us don't like exercise that much.
Right?
Music is really good for endorphins,
Ooh.
right? And so that's your body's natural painkiller. You know, when you're standing at a concert and 1,000 other people are singing and swaying at the same time as you, like that
Such a high.
feeling is endorphins in your body.
So cool.
And then oxytocin is the love hormone, but it's the relationship and connection
Yeah.
hormone. And the longest study that's ever been done on happiness, 85 years and going,
Oh my god.
at the end, or well, their last findings from the study,
Yeah.
it came down to happiness being correlated most closely to the strength of your relationships, to your
Mm.
connections. That is oxytocin. That is being in community and in space with one another. The quickest way to get an oxytocin bump is to hug someone.
Yes.
And what I love even more about this is pets count.
Oh,
So you get the same oxytocin boost if you're cuddling with your cat or dog.
it's so
And
good.
cats have actually, like, vibration of their purr is actually, it has evolved to be in tune with what triggers more oxytocin in
That
our
is
bodies.
so I just read something about that the other day and I was so mind blown about this. Yeah. That is so
It's
cool.
but it's that important that other animals
Yeah.
evolve to help us get the oxytocin releases that we need. But when you know, like, when you understand your brain needs all 4 of those, you don't have these big swings of today was a great day, today was a terrible day.
Yeah.
I'm happy 1 minute, I'm not happy the next.
Mhm.
Because all 4 of them are now working together. And then those 8 pillars are the practices that trigger those different skills. Like compassion helps you release oxytocin, right? Curiosity is dopamine. So it all plays together to actually affect the physiological response in your body and to rewire your brain to work better for you.
I could oh my gosh. I hosted a masterclass last night where I was talking about how, different healing tools help to regulate the nervous system and the neuroplasticity component there. And it's just like, God, I'm like, I don't want to get too nerdy about this because it's, kind of like, okay, you're going to tune me out at some point if I
I
do
know,
that.
I know.
It's so fun. I get so into this. I'm like, it literally is rewiring our brain. Like we're going from again, like my, example of like those quick dopamine hits where it's like
Mhm.
Amazon and DoorDash and whatever, the quick food delivery and all of that, where it's like then we start rewiring into like just completely, just changing the way that I'm like looking outside. I'm like the way that we, operate during our day to bring us
Yeah.
all of that and the lasting happiness. Like you said, that instead of all these quick bursts and these highs and
Yeah.
lows, it's like we can make this more sustainable. And I'm sure again that like every day, if we could actually touch on that, it's like every day is not going to be perfect. And, we don't do like the whole toxic positivity, but you really can create a more lasting happiness and, a better
Yeah.
life. I mean, my gosh.
Yeah, one of the like big aha moments for me in my work was when I realized, well, there's 2 parts. First, the opposite of happy is not sad. We like
Mm.
to think that the opposite of happy is sad, and we teach people that like when they're 2, right? That's one of the first things
Oh, that's so
we
true. Yeah.
teach our kids is you're either happy or you're sad. Those are both emotions. They're on the same spectrum. They do the same thing at the end of the day. Like they are messages for your body. Happiness is an action, it is a skill, and therefore the opposite of happiness or of an action is inaction. It's complacency.
Mm.
So
So
when you start getting intentional, you're getting rid of the complacency and you're creating more happiness in your life. And that's the second point is I was very intentional in naming my business Project More Happy, because the goal isn't to be happy.
Mm,
If the goal was to be happy all the time, we
yeah.
would fail. We would
Yes.
fail 100 times a day. The goal is not to be happy. The goal is to understand that we have the power, individually and collectively, to create more happiness in our lives. And so, at any moment when you're in a slump, when you're feeling upset, when you're drained, when you're stuck, all of those emotions that you don't want to feel, okay, to create more happiness, you just have to take an action. So much of life is just telling yourself to take the next step forward. And we can always create more happiness, even in like the darkest moments. We can create a little more happiness. And when you understand that on the personal level, you can start designing a life you love. And when we understand that on the community level, we can start designing a world that works better for all of us, and that we can start showing up and creating environments and spaces that allow other people to create happiness, to show up as their best selves.
This is like that was the mic drop. I love that so much. Oh my gosh. I have nothing to say. I'm just like this is so beautiful because it's so true and I think that that's like what we're all kind of after, right? Is to be able to just be ourselves and show up and just enjoy this world. Like my husband the other night, he just reminded me. He's Indian. He's very much into, all of the Indian philosophy and how, he's like it's just life is so short and he's like we came here in this body to experience life in this human form and we don't know if we get more than one shot, like we don't know what happens, right? And so yeah, we're here this one time in this one body and we have to just
let's
make it count.
let's
Yeah.
make the best of it. Let's, a lot of it sounds easier than it actually is, right? Like if you're in a toxic work environment, it sounds
Mhm.
really easy to say, just go get another job.
Right. Yeah.
Life doesn't work that way because the systems don't work. They're not set up and designed for it to work that way. But even if you're in a toxic job,
Mhm.
you still have power to choose how you're going to show up in that environment. So you can let it weigh on you and feel heavy and stuck all the time, and you can keep your energy really low. I've been there. I've done that.
Yeah.
Those were hard times. You just push through it. That's what we like to tell them. Just push through it. Just hang
Yeah.
out there. Or you can say, what can I do in this moment for
Yeah.
myself to create a little more happiness, to let this feel a little bit better, to create a little more positive energy? And when we start taking back that control, right, we can really start loving our lives, even and despite the external circumstances that we don't have control over.
What would you tell, that the woman listening who's just like, okay, I don't know, just where do I start? Like that first step, because she's, maybe in that toxic job or whatever it is, where life is just feeling pretty, unhappy. Life is not feeling good. Where it's maybe just like one quick, I don't want to say like a dopamine hit type of thing, but that one quick step towards more sustainability.
Yeah. I like to schedule
Mm.
my happiness on my calendar and make it a non-negotiable. So a lot of us can't do that during our work hours, but you can do it right after work. Even if it's I'm going to drive to a park and spend 10 minutes on my
Mm.
commute home, right?
Love
If
that.
nature is a thing for you. But
Yeah.
schedule it in, get it on your calendar, make it non-negotiable. And the reason this actually works really well because one, it's something that's going to bring you joy, right?
Yeah.
You can look forward to it. There's all this research around where experiences create more happiness than things, right? If we spend money on experiences, we create a lot more happiness and positive energy than when we spend money on things. And the
Yeah.
reason that is, and this is why the calendar hack works, the reason that is because with experiences, we get to experience them 3 times over, or at least 3 times over.
Ooh,
Okay.
so
You
good.
get to anticipate it. So if I've scheduled, I'm going to read a trashy romance novel for my happiness for 20 minutes tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've scheduled that. So now I get to anticipate that that is coming. So I
Ah,
get to lean into more positive energy in that anticipation stage. Then when that 20 minutes comes, I get to really enjoy myself. So that's the second time we're experiencing it. And then it's called savoring, but it's that gratitude practice. After we've done it, we get to we get to experience it again through savoring the act and the experience that we got enjoyment from. And that's why when we practice gratitude, it helps to get really granular in what
mm,
we're actually grateful for, because our body actually, we can create the same physiological response of the experience when we're
yeah.
thinking back on the experience. So just schedule some happy time on your calendar. Like it can be 10 minutes. 10 minutes is better than no minutes.
Yeah. Yes. I would love to propose that to everybody, like as, like a challenge with this is, schedule 10 minutes of something. And it can be, I love what you said, go to the park or read something that lights you up, or it can be completely individualized, but just take that 10 minutes, throw it
Yeah.
on your schedule. Non-negotiable was a key word. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I do. I'm teaching myself the ukulele right now in my happy
Oh,
time.
cool.
I'm not good. I don't have a desire to be good, but it brings me joy. And so that is my non-negotiable right now.
Yeah. I
Right.
think that's like, I'm like, I don't want to go down another one of my rabbit holes, but that's another thing I just want to mention real quick is like that, we won't get into perfectionism because it's so much, but just that's not the goal here, right? Like the goal is
Right.
to live our life. Just to try
Yes.
something, be happy. Like, yeah, I love this.
Yes. I well, the perfectionism thing is also, it's ingrained in us from our environment. It is the
Ah,
systems that set up that perfectionism. I have young kids now, and we talk a lot about grades and how we show up in school, because
yeah,
the education system has it set up to, you are supposed to get all A's in everything. You are
yeah,
supposed to be good at everything. And that's not how we work.
yeah,
Like, we are not supposed to be good at everything. And that's why the community piece of happiness is so important, is because we need each other for the gaps in our lives. And so our school system is asking us to be perfect and genius at all, topics and in all subjects.
yeah,
And so we carry that through life without ever going, wait, this doesn't make sense. I'm
yeah,
not supposed to be good at everything. And I would find more joy if I spent time in the things that I'm good at and let myself just show up in the spaces that I'm
yeah.
not good at with no pressure.
Yeah, and have fun learning or experiencing things that you might not be good at if it's something that you want to do. Like, yeah. Uh, I could seriously talk to you all day. I'm loving this. This is such a fun, yeah. This is such a
Yes.
fun topic and I just love your energy. Like this is so fun.
Thank you.
Where can everybody find you? How do we get plugged in? Is there
Yes.
like how do we work with you? All of that.
Yes. So I have two websites. I have projectmorehappy.com, which is more the corporate website
Okay.
now. So companies can reach out there. I also have jessicalyonford.com.
Okay.
Jessicalyonford.com has a bunch of free tools on it. It has the Happy Leader Hub on there. You can sign up for my weekly newsletter. So I have a weekly newsletter that goes out. So that's jessicalyonford.com. You can also find me on all the socials. At, I think, More Happy Coach on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn. And then I also have a new book that came out in March. And it's a bestsellers list on Amazon in
Oh,
multiple categories, but it's the
awesome.
Happy Leader Playbook. It goes through the 8 pillars of happiness. But the charge here is, yes, it's really important for us to do the work for ourselves,
Yeah.
but it is just as important for us to create spaces and environments for other people to show up to be able to do that work. And so, how do we do that? How do we take the 8 pillars of happiness? How do we put them to work in our lives so that we can show up with more happiness and positive energy? But
Yeah.
how can we then turn that on everyone that we influence throughout our days? So that's on Amazon, and
Oh,
there's a podcast, and I'm everywhere. You can find me.
I, I love this. Oh my gosh. And make sure you guys come to the Rise Summit because I cannot wait. The freebie that you mentioned, like getting that. And then I just decided that I'm gonna do a giveaway of your book. So we are gonna do that. Yeah, because
I love it.
this needs to be in way more hands than it already is. So yeah, we're doing that. I'm just so excited. But thank you so much for your time today and I just can't wait to stay connected.
Well, thank you. Thank you too. It has been so much fun and such a joy to talk to you today. Yeah, this conversation needs to happen more and more, because
Yeah.
again, the more people who understands it, the more impact we can have and create in the world. So
Yeah.
thank you.